Welcome back to the Terry McGriff Show. Another week down, another week closer. Happy holidays to everybody. It's Christmas week. We're going to be ready to get all those Christmas gifts and give away a whole bunch of money and gift cards and all those type of things. And we're also at the end of this crazy year of 2020. So it's just luckily, I'm glad to have made it through so far. We still got another week to go, so we'll see. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be back on another episode. I'm happy to have the show back again. This is our third episode since we've returned and got my illustrious co-host sitting there in the iHeart Studios, Andre L. Sullivan. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to see, what you and the producer slid my way for Christmas. I'm gonna hold you to it for about 4 more days, and then we're gonna find out. All right.
All right. Yeah, we got Thursday. Today is Tuesday. We're recording this show. We're going to see what Santa Mama and Santa Daddy and Santa Kids put up on them trees and everything. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. Man, this has been one of those crazy weeks. We had some stuff go on since we've last talked, man. It's just some interesting conversation. We're going to start with our subtopics. We're going to talk about this college football playoffs, man. These championship games that were played last weekend and how interesting that was. We're going to talk about some here in Jacksonville, why everybody seemed to be celebrating, even though the Jaguars have lost 13 straight games. There's a cause for celebration, and it was done by another team. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the 2020 year as far as how this has been a landmark year for women in the game of football. We're going to go discuss that. Then we're going to go into the NBA. We're going to talk about they actually start tonight. The NBA regular season kicks off tonight with KD going against the Golden State Warriors, his old team before he went over there to Brooklyn. And then we're gonna start the show by just some. I want to take the time to wish the Keyontae Johnson, the former Gator basketball player, all some well wishes. They say he finally got out of the hospital, um, and we're hoping that everything works right, with him, and he's able to resume his career. He's able to, go back and have a normal life, and thanks to everything, with a lot of prayers and well wishes to him and all those in the Gator family, even from those who are not Gators. Also, I just like to take I met him, I think once in my life. Like to send some condolences to the family of Hall of Famer Kevin Green. He passed away recently, yesterday, matter of fact, and a lot of people were not expecting that, and I know I wasn't. And that's kind of a tragic thing. They haven't disclosed what was his reason yet. Maybe they've done it today, but I didn't hear the reason why he passed away. So condolences to him and his family and the Carolina family and the Pittsburgh Steelers family and the Rams family, all of those teams that he played for. They're all kind of grieving his loss right now, and the football family as a whole, because he was a Hall of Famer. We're going to get into those, and Andre, let's talk about it. I figure you might want to say something about on those two subjects real quick.
Well, which one now?
Kevin, we can talk with Kevin Green. I know you're not a big
listen.
Gator.
No. I mean, I'm not a big Gator fan, not at all. But Keyontae Johnson was a crucial part of what the Gators were definitely going to do in basketball for 2020. So I'm glad to see they actually put film up on Twitter of him dancing around with his teammates at a practice. He wasn't practicing, but he was at least there in body and in spirit. So it's glad to see him up and about. You never want to see that happen to a college athlete, let alone an athlete, period. But, like I said, well wishes to him, and I hope he gets better. And hopefully he can get back on the court someday. Now, to the other Kevin Green, that was a huge loss to, like you said, the NFL family as a whole. A lot of people don't know Kevin Green kind of, in his latter years working as a coach, kind of rewrote the book on how you can set up a defense in the NFL. And if you look at some of his teams, like the Green Bay Packers and the Steelers, who he was an assistant for, he literally, him and a few others, showed you how to put that organized chaos on defense on the field. And him as a player, it's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame. So, may he rest in peace, and our condolences to his family and loved ones. But it's a huge loss to the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't part of the subject we were talking. This was something we wasn't, when we were planning this show, wasn't expecting that we were talking about. But I really enjoyed watching him play throughout his years, and one of the things I did hear about him recently, even before his death, is how he was mentoring a lot of these younger defensive players. How he got these guys to think about their craft in a different way, and it's really, really been effective. As a lot of these young players have been able to come right out of college and be really effective rushing the passer now, thanks to a lot of his trainings, a lot of his philosophies that are now kind of spread all across the league with a lot of these young defensive players, and now it's even trickling down into the college level. These guys are getting better at rushing the passer at younger and younger ages. Usually when you got in the NFL, it took you a year or two to get your feet under you so you can be a pretty good pass rusher. Now you got people like T.J. Watt. They're coming right out with these guys training them, and they're really, really being effective of attacking the quarterback. And give Kevin Green a lot of kudos for that. So, once again, rest in peace with him on that. So let's get into this. Let's just go into college football playoffs. Everybody saw the bowl games, or the lackluster championship games that we had over the weekend. They were, except for the Florida trying to make a comeback, they were not very entertaining at all. I think a lot of people were just trying to get the season over with. I know there's a lot of teams, such as Tennessee, had some COVID issues. They had to back out. Army took their place, I believe, in the Liberty Bowl. It was been teams that are opted out all over the place. But when you got the college football rankings came out Sunday, I was not surprised, but what it did was tell us what we kind of knew all along. If you're not a Power 5 conference team, forget about getting in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you do. You can go undefeated. They're not going to give you the respect of your schedule unless you somehow defeated one of those Power 5 teams in their place, probably, and you probably put a whooping on them and then go undefeated. That's the only way a Group of 5 team is going to ever get in the playoffs. If Texas A&M could not get in, Cincinnati was not getting in. So Notre Dame, despite getting shellacked, for lack of a better phrase, still got in, and I think that was on the strength of having that one win over Clemson on top of being Notre Dame in itself. Alabama, they earned their way in there, so what can you say? They're the number one team. I expect them to win the entire thing. Ohio State, by all lacks of better phrases, got in there on name recognition alone. They, to me, did not earn the right to play in this for the lack of, playing enough games. Secondly, their strength of schedule, to me, actually wasn't even as good as good as Cincinnati's, but they got in there. They were grandfathered into the championship game by not and despite not even playing enough regular season games to get in there. So you knew what that was all about. And some of the other teams that were like, you looked at the Pac-12 championship we talked about, the backup runner up to the division ended up winning the conference championship in Oregon, who got into the championship game because of Washington backed out of it, and they ended up winning the thing. So this college football season is coming out to me on a whimper. Everybody knows, in my opinion, I think it's going to be Clemson playing Alabama for the national title again. And this is the fourth straight year Clemson's played for the national title. Alabama's 3 out of the last 4 years, and they'll be playing each other again, in my prediction, in the second week of January. I'm almost like some of these other fans now, ready for it to be over with, just so we can get through it. I'm actually looking forward to see some of the HBCUs play in the winter. So let's get on to see some people who are really trying to give us some real effort, and as we go on. I want to hear your opinion on that.
Listen, and you threw a lot of shots there. I'm not gonna lie.
I sure did.
But it's two things that you said that stood out to me. And everyone's really, really down that Ohio State got in. But if you watch this selection show on Sunday via ESPN or whatever network you decide to watch it on, to hear the representative for the committee say that there was no dissension in the room when they said Ohio State should get in, I don't think that comes from a place of all of the boys at the table. It comes from a place of, this is a team. Granted, they only played 5 games. That wasn't due to them, but at the end of the day, they played those 5 games and they won. And so, the term undefeated only can mean something when you're playing somebody. And just like you threw shots at, Ohio State and Notre Dame and stuff, those shots can also be thrown at teams like Cincinnati. Those shots can also be thrown at teams, like Coastal Carolina. Who can we say that they've played that we would be excited about watching on a Saturday evening? And that's the issue that people are not getting with this college selection committee. I get it. Maybe your team did not get in. Maybe your favorite college team this past Sunday just told they got to play a lower bowl. Understandable. But at the end of the day, the right teams got picked. And I say the right teams got picked, not in my opinion. The right teams got picked because those are the teams that, at the end of the day, you're turning your TV on to see those teams. I'm sorry, I'm not turning my TV on to see Cincinnati. I don't care what the Bearcats do. I'm not turning my TV to see Coastal Carolina. I really don't even know their mascot for real. So at the end of the day, that's what happened. I mean, and I get it. Texas A&M felt like, oh my God, they should have got in. I get it. Notre Dame versus Clemson wasn't as exciting as we thought it should have been. But Notre Dame's coach said something that probably made more sense than anything anybody else said on this election day. When you're a big Power 5 school, you control your destiny. Florida had their chance to get in. They waited till maybe to the fourth quarter to actually start playing like Florida football. They did not win. They didn't get in. Plain and simple. We can talk about Texas A&M, who beat Florida earlier in the season, but came up short against other teams and didn't get in. And granted, they beat a lot of great teams, but none of those great teams are being mentioned in the college football playoff. And so Notre Dame got in. Yeah, they beat a Trevor Lawrence-less Clemson team, but they beat them. And so what Notre Dame coach said is, no, you control your destiny when you're playing. You can't control your destiny when there's a group of 35 old elderly men sitting in a room selecting. And so, granted, some people aren't excited about this season. I'm sorry. The selection committee does not care. And I'll go forth as far as saying not you, coach, but the average fan won't care when they're turning their TV on to watch the Rose Bowl and to watch the All-State Sugar Bowl for the playoffs and then watch the national championship. You won't care what happens selection committee on selection Sunday, because at the end of the day, the teams that you turn on the TV every Saturday to see will be playing for a national championship, or at least a shot at it. And that's the goal of the selection committee. Not to necessarily get it right, but to get you to the TV. And that's what they did.
I tell you what, that was 100% on point. That's correct. This thing has morphed into nothing but for television ratings. It has nothing to do with, anything to do with who deserves to be in there. First of all, let's go and mention Texas A&M. They're not a sexy television pick. I don't get, all hot and bothered, ready to go watch Texas A&M play anybody except for maybe my team. you don't they kind of screwed themselves even by joining the SEC because they broke a lot of college tie-ins. They broke a lot of tradition that they had. They don't even play their own rival Texas anymore, even outside of a COVID year. So then their schedule outside of beating Florida, they did lose to Alabama, but the rest of the schedule being a Western Conference team in the SEC did not help them as far as sex appeal when it came to the voters, to the board members on the committee. So that's why they're not in. Plus, it's a little bit of blowback at Jimbo. I want to say, there's some people who got some axe to grind with who he is and how he does some things. So you factor all of that in there. So Texas A&M kind of let themselves, be the odd man out. I don't even think they got a really great bowl game on the pick because I think Florida got a better deal being in the Cotton Bowl playing. I believe if they're playing Oklahoma, so their game is actually going to be sexier when you're talking about all this television. Their game will be probably more watched than Texas A&M's game, and that's one of the reasons community actually made sure that they got out there. They didn't want them playing in a game in Florida again this year that nobody would want to watch. They wanted to make sure one of the most exciting teams, even without Kyle Pitts deciding to opt out and go pro, they're still going to have Kyle Trask in there, and they're still going to get the ball around, and they're going to be exciting against another team that doesn't play defense and see what they do against these guys. So it'll be a SEC team versus a Big 12 team, so that's going to be interesting. Now, the selection committee, when it came to the playoffs, I thought it was interesting the way they wanted to make the matchups to make sure that everybody watched the games anyway. Notre Dame, Alabama, you're looking at classic tradition right there. Now, is the matchup going to be worth watching? Nah, probably not. I think the game will be over fairly quickly. I think the game will actually real end quickly because both teams like to put the ball on the ground and run the ball. So if it lasts 3 hours, I'll be surprised because both teams like to run the ball a lot. However, Clemson playing Ohio State will probably be the more intriguing matchup because you'll probably, first of all, when it comes to the draft, you'll have the top two prospects in the NFL draft playing in that game. You'll have a couple of other high first-round picks that'll be focused, like a local product here, Sean Wade. He'll be talked about in that game, and a couple of other their players, Chris Olave, for instance, will be played in that game. They'll be playing in that game. So there's going to be a lot of interest, not just for the game itself, but people looking at who they're going to be able to get in the draft pick. We'll talk about that later, as far as Trevor Lawrence as we go along. But that's going to be the interesting thing. I'm pretty sure that game will be fairly interesting. It's a rematch of last year's first round playoff game, which Ohio State had control of that game until they made some fatal errors, which cost them that game. So that ought to be good. Plus, they have a back coming off a great game of 300 yards. Trey Sermon, if I got his name correctly, the running back for Ohio State. So it's going to be a lot of draft pick. Let's watch these games. Who these guys are going to be in the draft, and they're going to be a pretty good matchup. I would like to. I hope that I didn't even watch to see what the schedule is. Hopefully on January 1st, that's the second game instead of the first game. Hopefully Notre Dame, Alabama is the first game. So other than that, you really don't have any intrigue outside of that game. You're looking for Clemson to be playing Alabama in a week or 10 days later, whenever they decide to do it. You already right now have all the bowl games being played right now, the preliminary bowls. There's actually a couple of games playing right now, and they'll be played this evening. And then, the group of five, they kind of just going to be getting what's left over. And I think the only other game worth watching will be Florida, Oklahoma. I think Georgia's playing Cincinnati. Really, nobody has any interest in that outside of those two fan bases. So it's really not going to be anything outside of bowl season. And the fact we have so many teams deciding to opt out of the bowls altogether, I think there's been quite a few bowls that just shut down. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes as we get into this New Year's. And hopefully this season doesn't end on a whipper. Hopefully the championship game, both playoff games will be exciting. That's what I'm hoping for. And the other bowl games are exciting as we go forward. And I'll take you what you got, and then we'll go to our next subject.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, football has to be played. We learned from the movie Any Given Sunday, anybody can win when you touch the field. And granted, some of those games are kind of already decided, depending on who you go for and how you really watch football.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, like I said, college football at its finest, this is why we even had college football this season, because of financial reasons for these institutions and these businesses that support the sport. They did their job. And if you have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you. Don't watch cable. Listen, at the end of the day, it's gonna happen. And like I said, if you don't do your job, somebody else will do it for you, and that's just what the selection committee does.
You're right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just transition on into speaking of that when we're talking about that Ohio State and Clemson game. You're talking about. We're discussing all the teams that are looking for draft picks, that you're going to have the top 2 picks in the draft. And that definitely going to be a game that's intriguing to the people here in North Florida area. The Jacksonville Jaguars, by sheer dumb luck, have now found themselves in the position of the first pick in the draft. I think this will be the first time in their history they've actually had the first pick in the draft. With a new GM that's going to be hired before that, I know that they're going to have a couple of guys being interviewed here really quickly. If I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman for ESPN who's going to Louis Riddick. He's scheduled to be interviewed tomorrow for the GM position, and I haven't heard who else has been involved in the interview process yet. But whoever comes has got a great slate to try to correct things on. You got more cap room than they've had in probably the history of this team. 2 first-round picks, 2 high first-round picks, thanks to the Jets actually lowering the draft stock of the Rams unless they make it to the Super Bowl. They'll still have a mid-20s pick now instead of a late 20s or early 30s pick. Thank you for that, Jets. So I'm kind of a big fan for you to win the rest of that. And then because Cincinnati won last night, beating the Steelers, they're guaranteed the top 2 pick. So they can't even screw themselves out of the top 2 pick now. So that's a great thing. So the Jaguars kind of found themselves with a great pick, and everybody's now expecting it to be Trevor Lawrence. They didn't think we was going to get that. The kind of people had their hopes on the kid from Ohio State, but I think Trevor Lawrence is one of those generational quarterbacks that you can't miss. This is whoever comes in as the GM. This job will definitely be probably the most attractive job right now when you have all these picks, all this cap space, and the number 1 pick in the draft, which will be Trevor Lawrence. And it's gonna be some. There's a rumor that they're gonna go after Eric Bieniemy from the Kansas City Chiefs for their head coaching position, and there's a couple other guys that they're talking about coming in with him. I guess the assistant GM for Kansas City, he's probably might be a tag team deal, so we'll see how that works. But with that, the excitement level that just when the clock struck 0 on Sunday afternoon, the sports talk scene, the Twitter scene, everything social media when it comes to Jaguars was all about, praise God, getting the first round pick. And what can we do with it? And now what kind of GMs? Everything will now revolve around us getting the first pick in the draft. So it's going to be interesting as we go forward. And I'd like to hear your take on
it. Tom Hanks gave us one of the most pivotal lines that we could have ever received from a movie. And he said, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." And this is just personal opinion. But I think it's the dumbest thing in the world to root for your team to get a number 1 draft pick. More purposely, it's the dumbest thing in the world for Jaguar fans to be happy about this. And I don't understand the excitement. I don't get it. I don't like it. And of course, I'm biased to this because I cover the Jaguars for a living, but I don't get it. And I don't understand why everyone's so happy about this. We now, and let me do some backtracking before I actually get to the point here. Everyone's mad at Doug Marrone. And before they were mad at Doug Marrone, they were mad at David Caldwell. Before they were mad at David Caldwell, they were mad at Tom Coughlin. They didn't get a chance to be mad at Shad Khan because he's always throwing money at stuff. So, right now, Doug Marrone is the villain of choice. And for the life of me, I'm trying to understand exactly what Doug Marrone did wrong. And here's why I say that, because out of his tenure in being a Jacksonville Jaguar assistant coach and head coach, I can literally only remember him having one fully healthy team one season. And that just so happened to be the 2017 season where they went to the AFC Championship. I mean, and I had this conversation earlier today on one of the Jaguar Facebook groups. This man has done literally everything he can do to help this team besides save our souls, wipe our kids' butts, and prepare a table before us in the presence of our opponents. So I don't get the hatred for Doug Marrone, but moving that aside, I've unpacked that. Now let's get to my point. Everyone wants Trevor Lawrence. Great. In the history of the draft, I can never remember a draft pick that was drafted where you're like, championship. Never. And there were some that ended up being that way, but there was never one that came out and said, you know what? Championship. We got it. Never. Peyton Manning's first year. If I remember correctly, that was the year they were like playoffs? Yeah. So, and Michael Vick's first year in Atlanta. Oh, man. That was a troublesome year. Drew Brees over there in San Diego. Russell Wilson. It took them a minute to figure it out in Seattle. I can go on and on and on. But my point to this is we're getting Trevor Lawrence from a team where if we go from the number one player to the number 99th player, it's stacked. That's what Clemson is right now. They're running on all cylinders, and God forbid Trevor Lawrence get COVID again. They're going to be playing in the national championship. So he's doing that. He has, Travis Etienne, all of his offensive linemen, all of them ready to go. Boom. He's good. And Trevor Lawrence is a competitor. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is not a great draft pick. He obviously is. He marks all the check marks on the book. Boom. The crappy part about being the number one draft pick meant you had a crappy season before. And so there are so many holes to fill. Yes, the Jaguars right now have the biggest cap space that they had since 2015. Boom. Yes, but guess what? They also have the biggest holes that they have to fill since 2015. I mean, right now, yeah, Trevor Lawrence gets here. Cool. He got himself a running back. That's us in the media room waiting for us to tell us about everything else they have. Miles Jack moved the outside linebacker. That's good. They got themselves a really cool middle linebacker. Joe Giles-Harris gets burnt every Sunday. Oh, there's also a problem that since Jalen Ramsey left, there hasn't been a DB over there that can stay healthy and play through a whole season. Didn't they just draft a number one DB from Florida that was supposed to be the next coming of Jalen Ramsey? Yeah, cool. That's good. He did good for the 4 games he played in. And then on top of that, Jaguars get burnt over top almost every game, at least 1 or 2 plays. So we need safety help. Also, Gardner Minshew, Jake Luton, whoever you put back there behind center, hopefully it's not your grandma who's getting the ball after his snap because there's no line blocking. So who's going to be blocking for Trevor Lawrence? I mean, he's a great quarterback, but he ain't Jesus. So I don't see him maneuvering outside of anything that the NFL has to offer like that. And so, yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars get the number 1 draft pick. You know, they give that card to Roger Goodell, and they say with the first pick overall in the 2020 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence. Boom. Now we got to play. And then what?
I feel you. I hear exactly what you're saying. But, here in Jacksonville, we are the queens and the kings of the offseason. They are always excited about what's coming in the offseason because you're always picking in the top 10. We're usually bringing in some big time free agent, or you're able to get some people that you wanted in the draft. So this is what we're going to find out. My thing, what I think I'm more excited about, what is the fact that they are actually have a chance to put something together if they finally hire the right guy for the general manager spot. And that's a big 2-letter word. If how many times the Jaguars have struck out since, oh my God, 99? We haven't.
95 was when they were started as a franchise. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
Tom Coughlin, Michael Hughes was the architects of putting this team together. And since they've gone, the team has never been the same since. They brought several guys in. The old saying that some people tried and failed. No, they've tried and died. And so it's just you're hoping that this finally is the answer where you start building like you have your Kansas City dynasty that you're hoping. Everybody's hoping for that lightning in the bottle like Kansas City got when they were able to get Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes was not a first pick in the draft. He was somebody that they eyed because they had great general managers. They had great eye for talent, and they found those guys just like they found all the receivers. They found all those guys, those offensive linemen, and they found Travis Kelce and were able to build this. That's where we really need to have our focus on, not just one particular player. Even though we have multiple picks in the first and second round, you still have to get those picks right. And like you said before, they still have to stay healthy. My thing is with these guys, will we find the correct general manager? And will that general manager be the guy that finds the right coach? Whether it be Doug Marrone, they keep him here, because I've actually even heard where Miles Jack has been lobbying to keep him, no matter who gets the job. He has been kind of handicapped in the way he's been able to do things with his coaching. My only thing I have against him is that he's overly loyal to a defensive coordinator that just seems to adjust. He seems like he's stuck on stupid when learning that one defense and can't adjust to the times. We already know that the defenses are already handcuffed by the rules. And when you don't vary what you do, you give everybody a blueprint of how to beat you. And you haven't even given, especially your younger players, a chance to develop because you're only teaching them basically the one thing that you know and the only thing that you know. That's what it comes off to me. And it's pretty sad because there's been some games where the Jaguars have been competitive offensively that they could have probably won some games had they had a better defensive coordinator. And Marrone, he will not get rid of guys to save his life when he's thinking that, I know this guy, I think he could do a good job. But this is a results driven league, and he has not adhered to that. Well, he's not getting results, so you got to go. So unfortunately, that might be his downfall because he's being overly loyal, and he may not get another chance at even another head coaching job because of it. We'll see. And like I said, hopefully if they do change head coaches, it'll be somebody that's exciting, that'll get the people excited, even though we may or may not win with this guy, but somebody, Eric Bieniemy is obviously the flavor of the month right now. There's some talk about Philadelphia may be parting ways with their coach who's won a Super Bowl. So there's some guys out there that people are talking about, and there's some GMs. So that's the excitement that they're talking about. And having the first pick of the draft makes you an attractive franchise for people looking for GM jobs and coaching jobs when you got multiple first and second round picks, probably the best quarterback that's come into the draft in the last 5 to 10 years, and salary cap room that can maneuver. And, if you got a good enough relationships around the league, you might be able to bring you some pivotal free agents in to help fill some of those gaping holes that are in this team, especially on the defensive side. I think you can probably piecemeal some stuff together on offense, but that defense needs a lot of work, and we need probably some better strength and conditioning and medical people to make sure that these guys can stay healthy, or somebody to keep on top of them to make them stay healthy. So it's going to be interesting as we go forward with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the 2021 season beyond, and we'll see. We'll just see. We're going to move on now and talk to something that's a little bit near and dear to my heart. As you can see, my logo here with the Women's Tackle Football League. Um, 2020 has been a very, very big year when it comes to women in the game of tackle football. A lot of recognition, a lot of notoriety, a lot of news being made in 2020. We had our first woman to ever coach in the Super Bowl, Katie Sowers with the San Francisco 49ers. We've had several teams get prominent, news out there because of their women in the scouting department. Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have hired some women that actually are not just candy or eye candy, for lack of a better phrase, but actually real coaches out there coaching, doing significant work in the field of coaching, and being very, very instrumental in game planning and winning games and even losing games, because some of them may have made some mistakes, but they've learned from them. I'll take it. So it's been great. We had our first game where we had two female coaches and a female referee all coaching in the same game. And so it was a lot of history being made. We had our first woman kicker in Power Five, a woman to score in a Power Five game. And with we talked about her in the last couple of weeks for Vanderbilt. So it's been a huge, huge year for women in the game of football. I mean, wow, what can you say? I mean, there's a lot of things going on. We just see me personally with my group, the Laces Out Foundation, where we've gotten a lot of support from a lot of people in prominent in football wanting to help with us, where we're teaching these girls to be specialists, kickers, punters, and special teams. Um, Everything works out. We'll be having our first event in the Jaguar Stadium, and that's going to be very exciting for us coming in the new year. So it's been very, very big for women in football. They've done a lot of significant strides being made all across the landscape, and I'm just looking forward to see what happens as we go forward. And I'd like to get your take on it.
You know, just echoing everything that you mentioned before, you can't ignore the fingerprint that women have had in sports, and especially in particular with football this past year, especially during the year of so much turmoil that we've had going on in the world, let alone our country. So just again, every name that you named has played a role to kind of get this ball rolling, and you know history tells the story that we won't know yet, but at the end of the day, 2020 has been their year, and I wouldn't be surprised if that those numbers go up even more. Like you said, you have the women tackle football league going, but look for more women to try to get into the sport of football. We saw it this year with Vanderbilt, and don't be surprised if we see it more inside our top 5 colleges, especially with more in our sport. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where we see a woman lace up and play in the NFL. But I've also, if this year tells you anything, never say never. So that's where we are now, and the future is bright for women inside of the sport that we love.
Yes, yes. And I'm looking forward to see what happens. Like you said, I'm looking for a young lady. I'm going to mention her name at Virginia Tech, Amanda Shep. She's been trying for a while now to get on the playing field as a kicker. She was the varsity kicker in her high school. She's actually had several noted stories on her. She's actually been out there making tackles on special teams. So a person that's been out there with the boys, and now hopefully she'll get her opportunity next year. I think there's going to be some good news and rumors about that as we go forward in there. And I'd like to just kind of acknowledge some of these other people that we were talked about, like Kaylee Bronson with the Buffalo Bills, was an offensive assistant. Maria, please I don't butcher her name, with the Buccaneers. Maria Audubon, who's a strength and conditioning coach. as well as Lo Locust, who's the Tampa Bay defensive line assistant. Kelsey Martinez with the with the Las Vegas Raiders. Phoebe Schrader with the Buffalo Bills tight end assistant coach. Karen Smith with Buffalo. Buffalo's been really good. And Karen in Buffalo, Buffalo Bills, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Miami Dolphins have really, really upped the ante in bringing in women into their front office, into their scouting departments, onto their coaching staffs. Obviously everybody knows Katie Sowers. She was big in women's football, and she's made her mark. And she goes around and she does a lot of great stuff around there, promoting the game with women, promoting how learning the game and educating yourself on the game opens opportunities at these other levels. And there's, with all of that, you've had all this positive. You had some negative things happen with the Washington franchise before the season. There was some bad news, but overall, they've done a great job this season integrating themselves. The referees that were actually working the game. It's been one of those seasons that we'll remember in this sport, far as myself, all these other leagues that are having women football out there. Like I said, I'm open to all of these leagues working together in some kind of, cooperation to build this sport, because I'm all for expansion, not contraction. I believe they're the future. You're going to have, so they're going to have a lot of expansion going on. Matter of fact, DeAndre Hopkins, I can't remember her name, so please forgive me. I know she's probably watching. DeAndre Hopkins' sister has actually, in the Houston area, has started her own girls tackle football league, like at the Pop Warner level. And then there's, I want to mention, the Utah Girls Tackle Football League, who's been operating with youth football for a long, long time. I want to say at least 5 years now. And not to mention the Florida High School Athletic Association, who has these girls not playing tackle, but they play flag football for state championships for at least the last 3 seasons. So kudos to these people who are having the vision to see that women can be a big contributor in the game of football and make their mark and make this game even more outstanding than it already is. And I'm looking forward to some of the knowledge, because we have one of the young ladies on our staff, Ashley Sheps, as well as a couple of the other ladies that working in our front office that have been tremendous in making sure that the team here locally, the North Florida Pumas, have been vital and continue to be relevant in the game of football. And through the offseason, through the COVID years, it's been wonderful working with these women all across the country. You got some of these ladies are working in these different teams, front offices. They're getting their experience. They've been talking about, hey, I'm doing this because I want to go and get a job at maybe an arena team, or maybe at an NFL team or a college team. And they have the dreams and aspirations of moving on to the next level. And then the thing, what I was being most impressed, they have the knowledge. You get some of these women on these chalkboards, they know what they're doing. You get some of these women when they're talking about how to run a franchise, they know what they're doing. So they want to know. And then you got to think about it. When you just look at the dollars that are being spent in sports in general, especially football, women are probably your main spenders. They're the one that's buying the season tickets for the husbands, their boyfriends, their kids. They're buying all the apparel. They're spending the money. They're the ones taking the kids to the Pop Warner practice, to the trainings. So they're finding their way and they're finding their mark in this game. And I say nothing but kudos to them. Keep up the good work. No matter what level you're on, no matter what league you're associated with, I'm proud of all of these women for what they're trying to do. Whether you always see eye to eye on what they're doing, the fact that they're out there promoting this game and moving this game forward is nothing but, you can say, kudos to them, and we wish them nothing but the best as we go forward. And we'll see how 2021 plays into this, because I don't think they're going to slow down at all, because we're getting ready for our league playing the RWB All-Stars, USA All-Stars here in January, the week of January 13th through the 16th down in Orlando. And that's already a huge event. We've got, our Laces Out guys will be coming down there. We got a whole bunch of other dignitaries that are going to be in the event. I know the game's going to either be televised or streamed, but it's going to be you're going to be down there, because I think are you still going to broadcast? Are you going to do the play-by-play?
I'm trying. You got to let me know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, so I believe they're working all that out. So you'll either be doing the play-by-play or you'll be doing color analysis. So it's going to be exciting for that. And then, as I said, we're going to kick off everything, I think, in 2021 before the rest of the leagues do. We're going to start April 10th, right after Thanksgiving, Lord have mercy, right after Easter. You can tell I'm still eating on turkey probably. But you're gonna have all this stuff going forward. So 2021 is going to be exciting to see. But I just wanted to make sure we took some time out, because I know next week we'll probably be doing our end of year review on everything, and I wanted to make sure we recognize these women in sports, particularly football. We know what basketball done, what tennis done, what are the other sports that are normally have their niche. These women in football have been fighting to gain a foothold in this game. So I wanted to make sure I took a few moments with you to recognize them and the accomplishment that all women have made in this great game. So we're going to move on to our next subject. We're going to talk about something that, just like we said last week, snuck up on us, and even more. The NBA is kicking off tonight, and I'm like, wow. I'm still trying to catch up mode. I did a little bit of research last week to try to see, where we were with that, and I'm thinking, okay, they're getting ready to, play some, do some more exhibitions. And no, Christmas Day, they're kicking off. They're having their big annual Christmas game event. They have that doubleheader. And right now, tonight is opening night. And the big game that everybody's talking about is the Brooklyn against Golden State, KD against his old team. And it's going to be exciting. I'm actually going to take some time out to watch that and see what happens and try to catch up on this a little bit. But I wanted to make sure that, we let our fans know that actually NBA is back. We already knew college basketball is back. And to the fact that, you've even got now that COVID has kind of affected some of those college basketball teams. But the NBA, I really don't get to really start watching it until Christmas, but we're actually at Christmas and they've started. They had probably the shortest offseason in history of professional sports. So it's going to be crazy to see how this thing goes. You got all this realignment, you got all these new free agents. So as we go forward in the next year, we'll kind of catch ourselves up with the NBA and what they're going on, and I'll get your take on it.
Well, we got 2 games tonight. I don't want people to miss out.
Okay, thank you for that.
Warriors versus Nets, like you mentioned, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then also Clippers and Lakers, if you feel like staying up a little late tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, and then on Christmas Day, it's 5 games. I don't want people to miss out again. It's 5 games going on Christmas Day. So, yeah, and I won't go through that list. But, NBA is one of those sports that has become very fluid, unfortunately, due to everything that's going on in the world right now. But there are some storylines that, people got to pay attention to. LeBron is always going to be LeBron. Don't get it twisted. I know some people don't care for the homie like that, but he is LeBron.
Yeah,
and he's the king for a reason. So
hail to the king.
Right, James Harden is still unhappy in Houston, but he did suit up in an exhibition game these last 2 times out on the court. They're still shopping him, so it'll be interesting to see where he lands. Jimmy Butler is still doing his thing down here in Miami. They just re-signed Isaac and Fultz to an extension in Orlando. So, it's looking good for the NBA right now. And, of course, the boy got a big contract over there in Milwaukee, but it's still just like we say in football, the games still have to be played. The games still got to be played. They got a little shorter season just due to COVID because they still want to end around the same time next year. All God willing. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's get started tonight with the Nets and the Warriors and the Clippers and the Lakers. So we'll be looking to see how that goes.
Oh yeah, I'm actually gonna watch some basketball, which I haven't done, but I will have to. We're gonna end this show with me saying this thing about the NBA. The NBA created the blueprint on how to get through this pandemic. They did an excellent job with their bubble situation. They did an excellent job getting the playoffs, getting the champion crown. They did an extra job getting through their off season and back to playing. And I know why they did it, because I also know that they want to end on their regular stuff to get back on schedule. But they also know will be another Olympic year, because the Olympics were moved to 2021 because of COVID. So they need to get their teams ready for that Olympic gold medal run, even though they can just roll out 5 great players and win that thing anyway. It doesn't really matter. But they wanted to make sure the guys that they do pick to be on that Olympic team be prepared to go play against it, because they'll be playing against other NBA players in that Olympics. So it's going to be interesting. Well, as we go forward, I'm really going to try to find out who is who is where. I know I did hear where Miami, they cut off talks. We're trying to get James Harden. They said, no, it's not worth it to try to get what you're asking for. I got the strange feeling he's going to end up where he's at right now, unless somebody gets pretty desperate and thinks that it can run. I'm surprised that Milwaukee hasn't, made their try to get him, because I think that would be one of the best inside-outside duos we had since Kobe and Shaq. Not a different kind of dynamic of players, but the fact that you have that inside-outside game between the two guys that are so physically different, I would think that would have been intriguing for me to watch. As far as a medium NBA fan, I would have really kind of paid more attention if you'd have had James Harden in the East with Milwaukee, or even with Brooklyn, where you knew that they would have a super team to be ready for whoever came out of the West. But with that being said, we're going to close this show, and we're going to just wish everybody out there a safe and happy Christmas. We'll be back before New Year's. We want to make sure that you take care of each other, love on each other, wear your mask, you know what I mean? Do the right thing. And I want to just say happy holidays, happy Hanukkah to everybody. Merry Christmas. And we'll see you back here with my illustrious co-host, Andre L. Sullivan, here on the Terry McGriff Show next week. God bless. Happy holidays.